Welcome to the 1-2 Church podcast, coming to you from beautiful South Padre Island, Texas. Each week, we dive into God's Word with Pastor Sean Rensel, growing in faith, building community, and following Jesus one step at a time. Whether you're here on the island or tuning in from anywhere in the world, we're glad you're with us. So grab your Bible, open your heart, and let's get started with this week's study.
Hello, everybody. Good to see all your smiling faces today. When Sean asked me about doing this, he said, "What's your first reaction?" And I said, "I'm terrifyingly excited." And I worked. I'm a horrible overthinker. I'm sorry. I'm a horrible overthinker. So I wrote this 1,000 times and revised it, and hopefully I'll get a good message out of this. I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning, thought it was time to get up. And in that time that I was awake, God gave me not that we need a heading for this, but God gave me a heading. He just pounded it in my head this morning. And it's, but God had a plan. My wife, Jerry, I met her in 1986. We worked at the same dealership. We knew each other for quite a while. And finally one day, we asked her out. I already knew some of her story. I knew she had 2 girls and everything. And I'm from a family of 5 boys. I'm the youngest of 5 boys. So Mama was the only female in the house. Well, we met and obviously hit it off well. I met the girls, Tammy, the oldest, Chris, the youngest. And other than a few awkward things, well, there's always awkward stuff, but other than a few awkward things, we really got along good from the start. So time kind of just moved on. We got familiar with each other. We probably within a year or so, they all moved into my house. And again, a house full of women versus a house full of guys is a whole different story. I'm blessed that it happened that way, no doubt. But there were certainly some adjustments that were to be made, and we really became a family. At that time, the girls, Tammy was 18, and she had college and friends, and she was gone a lot. Chris was at home a lot. That's Chris over there, by the way. Let me introduce y'all. That's my daughter, Chris. That's her husband, Matt. My great-grandson, Brody, and my Taylor. She is lovingly called Tater Ben. Her name is Taylor Lynn. But when we told Jerry's brother that when she was born, and he said, "Well, what's her name?" And we said, "Well, Taylor Lynn." And he said, "Tater Ben." And I've called her Tater Ben ever since. She's just Tater Ben. So, but I can't help but think that this was something, I didn't think it at the time. It took a few years to understand this, but aside from the normal things that families have, it was a real easy time. We bonded and loved each other, and it's been a huge blessing in my life. After they moved in and everything, we had I had never been to one before, but we went to Jerry's family reunion. She was from Millington, Tennessee, and they had a family reunion in a little town called Brownsville, Tennessee, where a bunch of them grew up. And man, that reunion was something. Probably 150 people, more kids. I never had a family reunion like this before, but I met Jerry's dad, and his name was T.J. Duncan. T.J. didn't stand for anything. His legal name was T.J. He's not Thomas Jefferson or any of that stuff. He was T.J. T.J. Was, while he could be stern if he needed to, he was the most gentle human that I had ever met. And was something in me told me that I need to be close to this guy. And I can't say much more than just, even though he's a World War II vet, got injured in South Pacific. He was carrying ammunition back and forth from the camp to the gun sites. He bumps a corrugated steel building and cuts his arm. And they said, well, you're going to get the Purple Heart. And he said, no, I'm not. I'm not going to take a Purple Heart for cutting my arm on that building. My brother lost his arm in Europe. I'm not going to take that. And he didn't. He wishes he did later on. There's a lot of benefits to having a Purple Heart. But along with Papa T, TJ's wife, everybody called her Mama Granny. Her name was Fanny Louise. But she was incredible in herself. Thank you. In the late 40s, early 50s, Louise had a brain tumor, and they did brain surgery on her in the late 40s. And she lost complete sight. She had already had 2 girls at that time, and they later went on to have 2 boys that she never saw. She never put her eyes on them at all. She'd feel their face, and that's how she knew who they were. She could serve you at the table. She could fill your tea glass. She did nothing slowed her down in the earlier days, and she was as incredible as Papa T was. And and I looked at. We went many times, and I look forward to every visit. I didn't know what it was teaching me along the way. I just knew I bonded with Papa T for sure, with TJ. But our lives moved on. The girls got married, started having grandkids. Well, grandkids for me. And Taylor's the first grandkid. Again, I was the youngest of 5 boys, and I've never had a child of mine. But that's the first child I saw grow up from a baby. So we have a super special relationship. And we My grandkids are Taylor, Jeremy, and Trent. Jerry and I moved into a house with a swimming pool so we could have the kids over and have a good time, and we had just so many happy times. This family still growing together. Again, I will admit at that time I didn't think God had anything to do with this, but as I look back, I know He did, and we will cover that here in a minute. The girls all moved away for a period of time. Tammy went to Wisconsin and lived for a while, and this part of my family moved to Missouri, and still stayed close, but we were separated for a long, long time. Well, as the years passed on, Jerry started having medical issues. First, a back surgery that ended up making her disabled, where she couldn't work or anything anymore. And so also she had a severe respiratory issues. And in her life, she had a antibody missing from her bloodstream, and she couldn't fight off respiratory infections because of it. And she had pneumonia 37 times in her life. And her lungs were wrecked from all of this. But in this one particular occasion, Jerry got a bad case of pneumonia. And after being admitted, she was in such bad shape that they put her into an induced coma. And she was in that coma for 10 days. And so she was intubated. I go see her every morning and every evening. One thing where God did step in is the night nurse turned on Christian broadcasting in the room. She was out, but she said she still hears it, and always look back on that and thank her so much for doing that. But we went. I went twice a day, and I'm pretty much talking to myself. But every day I walk down the same hallway at the end of the day, and walk the same path. Well, about day 8, I'm walking down the same path I walk every time. I noticed there was a chapel there. I passed it every day, never saw it. And I stepped into that chapel that day. And I asked God to heal Jerry. And I made a bargain with God. And the bargain was that if you heal Jerry, I will go to church every Sunday, and I will dive into you. And so I really felt different leaving that chapel that night and going to the car. But the next day, she's getting better. She's improving. They end up extubating her, backing off the medication. And they extubated her, and then, it takes an hour or two to get your ability to talk back. And she was doing great. And I left her that night, and I came back the next day. I came about 6 a.m. every morning, but I came back about 10 o'clock. And she said, "What are you doing here at 10 o'clock? I worked at a car dealership just up the street. I worked 40 years in the parts business. I was a Ford parts salesman and parts manager and stuff." And I told her, "Well, they fired me. That's the plague of being a manager. At some point, somebody does something, and and it happens." And she said, well, you know what, we're going to be all right. And I said, well, I think we will too. And I believe it was the next day we got out of the hospital. I took her home. I needed to be there. She was barely able to do anything for herself. I needed to be there. And over the next few months, she got, her lungs were healing more and more. She got to feeling better. We go to a doctor's visit, and the doctor says, you know what? I think you're good as you're going to get. You're doing fine, so I'm just going to release you. So he did. We go home. We're not home less than 10 minutes for sure. And get a phone call. And it's a friend of mine in the parts business. He's a manager. He said, you want to go to work? The day that they released Jerry, I got a job. Started the next day. God's everywhere we turn. God had a plan. I didn't know what it was. But, and I worked for that organization for 17 years and retired out of it. Also, when she got out, I went to church with my family at a place called the Cowboy Church of Ellis County. It's a huge cowboy church. It was the first big cowboy church that, other than the ones that they have in the rodeos, but it was the first big standalone cowboy church. And I went there for 12 years, every Sunday. And that's when I learned that my bargain was really God's grace. It wasn't anything to do with the bargain. So we had made many trips back to, I keep bringing up my father-in-law, but we made many trips back to Tennessee and visited Mom, Granny, and Papa T. And I began to see my future in what Papa T had to deal with, because Granny had a lot of medical issues, just like Jerry had a lot of medical issues. They looked a lot alike. I told Matt one day, we were sitting Granny and Jerry and Chris were sitting on a porch swing on the back porch. And I turned to Matt and I said, Matt, you see what your history, what your future is here, because they all looked alike. There's just different ages. So, the things about Papa T, I want to go a little deeper with him now. They, and rightly so, idolize that guy. And he spent quality time with him. They worked in the garden. They worked in the yard. If he had a project, they were included in it. And they told me so many stories of the times that they got to spend with TJ, and the loving care and that he provided for both of them with that garden and his time. Really important memories that these young ladies had. He shaped their lives, and his adoration for the girls always prevailed. TJ and Louise's home were my girls' safe place when their home life wasn't necessarily the best in the world, but they always had TJ and Louise to run to. January 2016, Jerry started having upper back and neck pain, and we were referred to a spine well, a specialist. He was a surgeon also, and did an MRI, and Jerry had a crushed vertebrae that was squeezing her spinal cord. And so he said, "We're going to have to do surgery immediately. This is very dangerous." And they explained to us what the surgery was going to be. Jerry, they would apply a metal structure to the backside of her neck that went 6 or 8 inches down her back. And then they would flip her over in surgery and apply a metal structure to the front side of her neck that went down about to her collarbones. And he said it would take 5 to 6 hours of surgery to do that. So we went into surgery. I don't know, it was probably 5 a.m. or so the first day. They came and get her. She's in surgery. They get all the surgery done. They bring her back to the room, and they soon begin to extubate her, get her off of the propofol that she was on, and soon she was talking. She was still out of it, but talking. So we could have a discussion. Well, about 2:00 the next morning, some nurses come in and they take her to get an MRI, and they wanted to make sure that all the stuff was in place, that nothing moved or anything. And so they go do their MRI, brings her back to the room. About 5:00, the doctor walks in, and he says, "Several screws have backed out, and we're going to have to go do this again." And I said, "When you say again, what are you talking about?" He said, "Essentially, we're going to have to do the whole thing over again." So we go through the same procedure. This happened 3 days in a row. She had 4 surgeries, 20 hours of anesthesia. And although she had a lot of trouble healing from the incisions and everything, the structure was doing fine for her. But that amount of anesthesia was not good. It didn't work out really well. So a month or so later, Jerry started having abdominal pain. And they looked at her, and her family doctor thought she had an internal bleed of some kind, but didn't know what it was. And they sent her to the hospital, and they did all kind of tests and stuff at the hospital. And they said, "We can't find it. We know there's one lead, and she's losing blood somewhere, but we don't know where." And through all of this, her kidneys started failing. And they put her on dialysis. Well, as the days go on, machines start piling up around her. She ended up on 8 machines, keeping her respiratory going, keeping her heart going. And one night, some dear friends of mine were in the room with me, and the doctor comes in and says, "Listen, we know there's an internal bleed, but we can't find it. And if you want me to open her up, I'll do it." And I didn't think very long about that. It's a decision you never want to make. But I said, "No, we're not going to do anything to her anymore. She's only being held alive from all of these machines. The Jerry we know is gone." So The hardest part of all that, thank you, sweetie. The hardest part of all that is calling the girls and the grandkids and having to tell them that I made a decision. I agonized over that thing so long. I absolutely know I did the right thing. But that didn't make me feel any better. So we gathered people together the next day. She had to drive in from Missouri. My other daughter, Tammy, was in town. And quite a few friends gathered in our room that day. And in talking to the chaplain, he said she was still on the machines right at this point, and there was a time set for turning them off, but I don't remember what it was. But he said, y'all just need to, he said, she can hear you. Y'all just need to tell her you love her and that it's okay to go. Well, and that's what we did. But they disconnected all the machines, and they said she will last about 15 minutes or so, wouldn't it? How long did she last? 2 hours. Yeah. She was stubborn. She was a fighter. But at 12:23 on May 25th at 17, we lost her. And not a favorite memory of mine, but what I discovered in looking back when all the pain and the hurt was mostly gone was that God had introduced me to the kindest, gentlest man on the planet, and that was T.J. Duncan. And he went through a ton of stuff with his wife, and God put that guy in my life. There's no doubt about it. And he was an amazing human. And as I look back on everything, God had a plan. He had a plan for me when he made me notice the chapel when I walked by. And I walked in there, and it's the first time I'd talked to God in a long time. Everywhere I turned, God had a plan. One of God's plans in my life, and honestly in many folks' lives in here, was in I believe it was 2021. I was at a Nate show, and in one of his breaks, we were talking about, man, there's just not a church on this island that we connect with. And he said, man, I know that there's a new one starting, and I'm going this Sunday, and then I'll let you know about it. And so the next week at his show I went to, he says, man, this is going to be the place. This is going to be our place to go. And 3 weeks into 1-2 church, I walked into the church in a bar. And I got taught the goodness of God's grace and mercy, and that nothing happens by accident. He's got a plan. He's got And it's not just a plan. He's got the whole thing laid out. He knows before we knew it, for sure. And we came here, or I came here, and I loved the learning that we were getting. It was not like any other place. And about 3 or so years later, and I'm going to Laguna Bob's, and Matt and Crystal, pastor and his wife, were crossing the street, and she said, "Hey," they stopped me, and they said, "Hey, I want to tell you before you hear from anybody else," but she said, "God's calling us to start something new." Now, as we talk about this plan thing, let me back up one thing. Matt and Crystal, during COVID, were taking a vacation to Jamaica. And when COVID hit, all that got canceled. And so they're looking for a place to go to an island. And he opens up the map and he goes, "Well, here's an island." He's pointing to South Padre Island. But he thought it was in Mexico. And he thought that he needed passports down here. And he came down. He and Crystal came down. And I don't know what the time frame was, but him and a few other folks came here to lunch. And they were just talking about the possibility of opening up a church. And they were talking at the time, they were talking about, well, where would we gather at? Frank happened to walk by. And Frank hears him and he said, "Well, heck, you can do it here for free." And Crystal finished her vacation. About 3 months later, Matt goes to Crystal and says, "Honey, what would you say if I told you that I think God's calling me to open a church on that little island?" She says, "I think we need to pack." And they did. Matt showed us a different kind of love, and I'll forever be grateful to him for it. And then when they did decide to go, we went on a search, and in the first week of we put out an ad for a new pastor. I didn't even know they had all that. But we put out an ad for a pastor, and I think we ended up with 73 applications. But in the first week, one guy stood out, and we met for 4 weeks, and we watched all the sermons online. We did our due diligence to find somebody, and we went the second week, and they said, "Yeah, well, these guys are okay, but that guy in the first week I think he's still the guy." Same thing the third week. "Yeah, these guys are okay, but that first guy in the first week is special." And that guy was Sean Rensel, and we had Sean down, and the cool thing about Sean is he gives us a different angle of Jesus with the simple grace plan that he preaches off of. And so if we think, if you have any clue, God has a plan. And it's nice to go back and look and see that plan in work. We didn't see it when it was going on, but to go back and look and see that every heartache that we had, every hard situation that we had, God had a plan. He was ready. And I think that Sean is doing a great job of just proving that to us every week. And I just I'm just thankful for my Heavenly Father and this family that He put together. Again, never had any kids of my own. But as we sit here today, I have 2 daughters. I have 3 grandkids. And I have 5 great-grandkids. God had a plan. Thank y'all.